Welcome to HiEndCentral. Today we are looking at the Sansui B-2101 with C-2101, and I want to present it not just as a beautiful vintage Sansui component, but as a real buying decision. This episode is for the listener who is asking, should I buy this amplifier? What kind of speakers should I connect to it? What room does it belong in? What should I check before paying? And what does this model tell us about Sansui engineering? The matching preamplifier from the mid-1980s period. In Sansui history, that matters. Sansui did not make one single sound forever. The early models can be warm, dense, and very musical. The mid-70s models become more powerful and more flexible. The late 70s blackface amplifiers become faster, cleaner, and more controlled. The 80s models, especially the X-balanced and super feed-forward designs, move toward very low distortion, high speed, and a more modern technical presentation. For this model, the headline power figure is 200 watts per channel into 8 ohms, higher dynamic power into lower impedances in published data. That number is important, but it is not the whole story. A vintage amplifier is not only watts, it is power supply size, current delivery, heat management, output stage condition, preamp quality, phono quality, control layout, serviceability, and speaker matching. A small Sansui in perfect condition can sound more convincing than a bigger one that has never been serviced. A large Sansui that has been badly repaired can become a very expensive mistake. Let us start with a practical overview. The Sansui B-2101 with C-2101 gives you this operating concept. C-2101 provides line and phono/control functions. B-2101 has line-level inputs and speaker outputs. On the output side, you normally have B-2101 speaker outputs, C-2101 preamp outputs, and tape outputs depending version. That means this is not just a power box, it is a system center. In a real listening room, you might connect a turntable, a DAC, a tuner, a tape deck, and 1 or 2 pairs of speakers. Vintage Sansui gear was built when the amplifier was the command center of the system, not a minimalist box with one input. The phono section deserves special attention. For this unit, the phono story is C-2101 is the matching control center. Test phono noise and channel balance carefully because repair complexity is higher. If you are buying Sansui for vinyl, do not treat the phono input as an afterthought. Many of these amplifiers have phono stages that are a major part of the value, but you must test them. A phono stage has much more gain than a line input, so it exposes noise, grounding problems, old capacitors, bad transistors, dirty switches, and poor previous repair work. When you inspect the amplifier, test both channels on phono. Listen for hum, hiss, crackle, imbalance, and microphonic behavior. Move the selector, tape monitor, subsonic filter, and tone switches while listening at low volume. If one channel disappears, returns, or scratches loudly, the seller should not describe the unit as fully serviced. Now let us talk about the technical character. The internal concept of this model can be described like this. X-balance technology, symmetrical balanced power amplifier concept, very low distortion specification, high dynamic power, LED meters, level controls, sophisticated 1980s circuit execution. This is where vintage Sansui becomes fascinating. Sansui engineers often built amplifiers with very serious discrete circuitry, careful grounding, strong power supplies for the class, and a real understanding of phono reproduction. But after 40 or 50 years, even brilliant design depends on condition. Electrolytic capacitors dry out, glue can become corrosive in some generations, fusible resistors can drift, relays oxidize, bias trimmers become unstable, solder joints around hot parts can crack, speaker terminals can become loose, RCA jacks can oxidize. A very common mistake is to judge a Sansui only by the front panel. Yes, the look matters. The knobs, switches, black faceplate, meters, champagne details, or wood case all create emotional value. But as a buying assistant, I would rather see a slightly imperfect faceplate with a documented professional service than a perfect museum face with original 50-year-old capacitors and unknown output transistors. Cosmetic beauty is nice. Electrical health is mandatory. For damping factor and speaker control, remember the simple rule. Damping factor tells you something about how tightly the amplifier can control the speaker, especially in the bass, but it does not tell you everything about sound. For this model, the useful summary is strong modern-era bass control. Published pages emphasize high current dynamic capability. With vintage speakers that have easy impedance and efficient woofers, that can be more than enough. With modern speakers that dip into low impedance and have complex crossovers, you need more caution. Do not assume that a vintage amplifier with a famous name can drive every modern tower speaker. Always ask about speaker impedance curves, sensitivity, and room size. The recommended load situation is rated for 4 to 16 ohm loads. Still avoid abusive speakers unless fully serviced and well ventilated. In plain language, if your speakers are nominally 8 ohms and reasonably sensitive, this amplifier is in its comfort zone. If your speakers are 4 ohms, low sensitivity, and known to need current, you should be more careful. If the amplifier is freshly restored and the room is not huge, it may still work. But if the amplifier is original, warm running, or unknown, difficult speakers can expose problems quickly. Vintage gear usually fails when heat, age, and load stress meet each other. Let us place this amplifier in a real room. I would use the Sansui B-2101 with C-2101 in medium large and large rooms, especially where low distortion and control are priorities. That matters because a 30 to 50 watt Sansui can be magical in a small or medium room with efficient speakers, but disappointing in a large room with insensitive floor standers. A 100 to 170 watt Sansui can sound effortless in a bigger room, but it also needs ventilation and more serious service attention. Power is not about playing loud all the time. Power is about headroom, bass control, and the amplifier staying composed when the music becomes complex. For speaker matching, my recommendation is modern floor standers, JBL monitors, high-quality 4/6/8 ohm speakers that need current. Also excellent with large vintage monitors. If you like vintage tone, Sansui often pairs beautifully with JBL, Tannoy, Klipsch, Altec, Wharfedale, Yamaha, Pioneer, Sansui's own SP speakers, and other efficient designs. If you prefer modern speakers, choose models with a stable impedance curve and moderate to high sensitivity. I would be careful with very low sensitivity speakers, difficult electrostatics, compact towers with deep impedance dips, or anything that reviewers describe as needs a big amplifier. A vintage Sansui can be powerful, but it should not be abused. Now let us imagine the listening experience. The sonic character I would expect from a healthy example is fast, powerful, precise, less romantic, and closer to high-end 1980s Japanese engineering. But do not forget that condition changes sound. Old capacitors can make bass soft, treble dull, or imaging vague. Dirty switches can make one channel quieter. A bad relay can create intermittent distortion. Incorrect bias can make the amplifier sound flat, grainy, or hot. After proper service, many Sansui amplifiers sound dramatically more stable, cleaner, and more dynamic. For a presenter, here is the best way to explain the inside of the amplifier to viewers. Say that the internal design should be judged in layers. First, the power transformer. Is it physically large enough for the rated output, quiet, and not mechanically humming? Second, the main filter capacitors. Are they original, leaking, bulging, or replaced with quality modern parts of suitable voltage and capacitance? Third, the driver boards and output stage. Are the output transistors original, matched, and correctly mounted with good thermal contact? Fourth, the protection and relay system. Does it click in normally, protect the speakers, and avoid channel dropouts? Fifth, the preamp and phono boards. Are they quiet, balanced, and free of noisy, small-signal transistors? Viewers often ask about the number of output transistors per channel and capacitor values. With Sansui, the honest answer is that exact transistor complement and capacitor values must be verified against the service manual for the specific market version and serial range. Some units have production changes, previous repairs, or substituted parts. As a buying assistant, I would not rely on a seller saying all original or recapped without photographs. Ask for internal photos of the transformer, main capacitors, driver boards, output devices, relay, and the underside where solder work can be seen. If the seller refuses internal photos on an expensive Sansui, that is a red flag. What should you ask the seller? Ask when the amplifier was serviced, by whom, and what exactly was replaced. Ask if the main filter capacitors were replaced or tested. Ask for DC offset and bias measurements after warm-up. Ask whether all inputs and outputs work. Ask whether the phono input is quiet on both channels. Ask if the speaker relay has been cleaned or replaced. Ask if any output transistors were changed. Ask whether the unit has been tested with real speakers for at least 1 hour. Ask for a cold start video, a warm running video, and a video showing both channels at low volume. Low volume channel balance is a very important test because volume pots can track poorly near the bottom. The key buyer risk list for this model is: service history is everything, check protection, heat, unobtainable semiconductors, noisy level controls, and whether the preamp and power amp are a true matching pair. These are not reasons to avoid the amplifier automatically. They are reasons to negotiate and inspect properly. A service Sansui can be a lifetime piece. An unknown Sansui can become a restoration project. If you want a project, fine, pay project money. If you want a ready-to-enjoy amplifier, demand proof. Let us talk about price logic without giving a single universal number. Prices vary by country, cosmetic conditions, service history, originality, accessories, wood case, manuals, packaging, and whether the seller knows the model's reputation. The biggest mistake is comparing a restored unit to an untested attic find. They are not the same product. A restored amplifier with documentation from a known technician deserves a premium. A shiny, unserviced amplifier should be priced with restoration cost in mind. For Sansui, restoration can involve many hours of careful work. Cheap can become expensive very quickly. How should you audition it? Start with line input first, not phono. Use a known DAC or streamer and music you know. Listen at low volume for channel balance, then listen at moderate volume for distortion. Then test bass-heavy music to hear control. Then test piano or vocal to hear tonal stability, then test phono. On phono, listen for hum, hiss, crackle, and overload. Touch nothing inside while powered. Vintage amplifiers can hold dangerous voltage. If you are not trained, do not open and operate it live. If you already own this model, what upgrades make sense? First, proper cleaning with the right products, not random spraying. Second, replacement of known problem electrolytics and drifting resistors. Third, relay service or replacement. Fourth, bias and DC offset adjustment. Fifth, inspection of solder joints and thermal compound. Sixth, careful phono-stage noise checks. Do not blindly modify the circuit because the internet says upgrade. Sansui engineers knew what they were doing. The goal is restoration, reliability, and preserving the design character, not turning it into a different amplifier. Now, who should buy the Sansui B-2101 with C-2101? Buy it if you want a vintage Sansui with real musical identity, useful inputs and outputs, and a strong match for the right speakers. Buy it if you value phono quality and tactile controls. Buy it if you are willing to budget for service. Avoid it if you need remote control, HDMI, subwoofer management, Bluetooth, or guaranteed plug-and-play reliability. Avoid it if your speakers are very difficult and you do not want to think about impedance, heat, and service. Compared with modern amplifiers, the Sansui experience is different. A modern integrated may be quieter, smaller, more efficient, and more convenient. But the Sansui gives you physical presence, repairable, discrete engineering in many cases, a proper analog control center, and a sound that can feel more human and substantial. That is why people still chase these models decades later. My buying verdict for the Sansui B-2101 with C-2101 is this: buy if the condition is documented, the price reflects the service status, and your speakers are a sensible match. Negotiate if the unit is cosmetically nice but electrically unknown. Avoid if there is channel imbalance, protection trouble, phono hum, missing parts, amateur modifications, or a seller who cannot answer basic technical questions. The best Sansui purchase is not the cheapest one. It is the one that still works correctly after the excitement of the first week is gone. So, if this amplifier appears in front of you, do not only ask, "Is it beautiful?" Ask, "Is it healthy?" Ask, "Does it match my speakers?" Ask, "Can I service it?" Ask, "Is the phono stage quiet?" Ask how you avoid buying a beautiful box with hidden problems. The Sansui B-2101 with C-2101 remains important because it represents a period when Sansui cared deeply about amplifier engineering, vinyl playback, and real-world system control. In the right condition, with the right speakers, it can still deliver a serious hi-fi experience today. Subscribe to HiEndCentral and see you soon.